Hi, this is Jonas and welcome to my presentation. This is about Intoentries, a system implementation plan. So what is Intoentries? Let's have first this introduction. If you see the screen, this is an Android ecosystem or the Google Play. And its counterpart is the iOS ecosystem, which is the App Store. I was thinking, how would I merge these two into one? So there must be a common denominator for these two. If you see, there are lots of categories of each application for both the ecosystem, and these are the list. So what is common? Allow me to explain based on my experience. With my 15 years in the field of software development, what I have noticed is the current ecosystem is dominated by business enterprise applications such as payroll, point of sale, inventory, time and attendance, accounting, finance, and so on. And I was exhausted because of this repetitive code with the same module that I already made before. The only thing that separates them is their business flow, logic, and rules. The user demand on every time they approach a developer is they utter the word entry. I want to create an entry. I want to delete that entry. I want to add something to that entry. So that the concept of entry came up when I put myself on the user's shoe, because all that I've been dealing with are entries. So let's have a system overview. A typical design for a device installs a lot of application, making the entire ecosystem cluttered. So if you have these devices, iOS or Android, and you have this web browsers, in typical device you have to install a lot of application, making your devices full of icons with different application with different purpose. So an Intoentries is an entry-based ecosystem. It consists of the following system component: an entry-based application. This is an application created by the application builder. It transforms your established document into entry-based forms using your favorite browser. Documents such as quotation, purchase order, registration, request, membership, human resource paper, and the list goes on. A software ecosystem. According to software ecosystem, understanding an indispensable technology and industry, a book of David Merchant Smith and Clemens Zepersky explains its essence and effect, defined as a set of businesses functioning as a unit and interacting on a shared market for software and services, together with the relationship among them. The relationships are frequently underpinned by a common technological platform and operate to the exchange of information, resources, and artifacts. An entry-based ecosystem houses this entry-based application. These applications can be published in public or private in the ecosystem. So if you have an entry-based application and a introduced new ecosystem, you will have a new entry-based ecosystem, which I called it Intoentries. Intoentries is developed using a cross-platform technologies. It will run in different platforms such as web, Android, and iOS using one code base. Yes, one code base. You don't have to write the application in Java, Android Java, or Kotlin for your Android devices. No need to write in Objective-C or Swift for your iOS. Definitely no need for so many programming languages for your web application. So let's have a system overview about Intoentries. So if you have this screen, and this screen wherein you have to install a lot of applications, wherein each application only serves their purpose individually. In Intoentries, you will only have one application, and that is the Intoentries environment. Inside Intoentries, you will have this sample application built by the Intoentries environment using the application builder. So imagine you don't have to install lots of application that will require you more storage in your device. Only one application, and all of your Enter-based application will be housed into a single ecosystem called Intoentries. So the topic is quite broad, so I will limit the topic on the first recipient of the project, which is the AdeptEd, my alma mater, a SPED Bancal application. But I want also to showcase what are the other capabilities of this application. What it can do. It can also create this sample application. As you know, there's a lot of entries for the NBI, your NBI clearance. We could make it automated using the Intoentries application builder. Same like with the Bureau of Internal Revenue, the police clearance, the double Sangguniang app. Also, some other example are the Gmall, shopping, the NCC supermarket, and Philippines. So those are only the other possible output using Intoentries. Others are these three, which is my proposed capstone project: the in-demand, into-delivery, and into-pay, a plugin. So those are the other capabilities of this application. So let's have a management overview. So the school was established in the year 1975 with its first birth location along Sales Ayanguran Street besides Rizal Elementary School, Dinibanda sa may Ecoland. In its first early stage, the school population has drastically increases, thus prompted their school official to relocate the school in Bancal, Davao City. The history of creation of the school is linked to an enacted law, Articles 356 and 257 of Commonwealth Act No. 3203, and quote, the right of every child to live in an atmosphere conducive to his physical, moral, intellectual development. The concomitant duty of the government to promote the full growth of faculties of every child. The Presidential Decree No. 603 was enacted. It is also known as the Child and Youth Welfare Code. The Article 74 furnished a debut for creating of a special class that state and quote, where needs warrant, there shall be at least special classes in every province and if possible special schools for physical handicapped and mentally retarded and emotionally disturbed and mentally gifted. The private sector shall be given all necessary inducement and encouragement. So the school is longing for convenience and availability of information for both on web and mobile application, especially the automation of teachers' workloads and parents' concern about their children's school performance and evaluation. Teachers want their class records online, and report cards of every grading period are available to parents. It is common for public school nowadays that class attendance is the dilemma of every parent. Security guards monitoring the entrance will not suffice, as students tend to find ways to skip their class by going over the fences. So parents want to monitor the attendance of their children. Another concern of the parents is class monitoring per subject for their children. They want to see the results of their quizzes, final grades on the web or in mobile. It is also good to have for them if they have an analytics tools to do the forecasting and prediction per available data. According to the historical development section of the document, Basic Educational Information System served as primary MIS of the Department of Education. During the late 1980s, there was an attempt to automate the process of collecting, processing, and analysis of school data. However, there were problems and it didn't materialize. So, we have this operational consideration for Intoentries. Infrastructure is necessity resources. For a long-term goal of every organization, it is an apparent aim to furnish a supportive factor for an educational institution. A system infrastructure can aid in shaping the teachers, student, and parents a more productive environment. It is pleasing to the eye, neat, tempting, and user-friendly interaction of the application express a positive thought about the school. Thus, it draws an appeal for new enrollees. So here are the things to be considered during the system implementation in an operational process. Working jointly with the end user. Working with the user more often and clearly. Make sure to have no doubt or uncertainty about the entire process of the application. Communication. Make sure to convey to the user according to their lingo. It gives both parties an easy exchange of thoughts and idea about subject matter. Operational participation. Participate on any event related to the user's function. This will give you a direct from the source information that you will need to improve the application. Your thoughts in order. It is unmanageable for both user and developers to develop the requirement back to square one. This usually happens when the user or the developer resigns. You can imagine the dilemma it may bring to someone who follows someone else's code. If you have a good documentation of the discussion that happens with the user, it will provide the discourse a better starting point. New technology education. Technology are moving fast. Provide the user a rational thought and better understanding about the suggested technology to be adopted. Perceive or think about a model or prototype to help understand the technology and its distinct aspect for a possible solution as it shows direction for operational needs. Explain limitation. There's always risk and maturity for every technology. Explain this to the user in simply and mass direct to the point. Deliverables must be on time. It's the best systematic plan of action. It is everyone's mission to satisfy the stakeholders. Satisfaction is the top priority. Users' contentment feels when one has fulfilled a desire and need for an a need or an expectation. So we will have this implementation plan. It has 3 sections: the task, how many man hours, and the resource name. We will use man hours because it is much accurate, because usually on a daily basis you work hourly, maximum of 8 hours, right? So let's get into one by one. First thing most is we will have an Amazon Web Service account setup that will require 8 hours. So it has this sub-task: security configuration. This will be configured according to the industry standard for your Amazon setup. The next thing is the EC2 configuration. This is actually the server itself, the physical one. The next thing is we will configure the code commit for the AWS. Code commit is the repository, the code repository of your application. Next is we'll configure the AWS code build. This one will automate the building process of your application. The next thing is AWS code deploy. This will automate the deployment pace of the application. Next is the MongoDB setup. This is the database of the application. Next thing is we will configure the staging environment, and with the following subtasks: the Linux server configuration. You will be executing a lot of shell commands here. Then the next thing is the software dependency setup, such as the Python libraries, the Node modules, Node.js, .NET Core, the .NET Framework, and lot of stuffs. The next thing is we will need to test the staging environment. That will require 16 hours. If you can see, by the way, tasks 1 to 4 are concern of the developer. So let's go back to the live staging environment setup, wherein you will have to configure the AWS code pipeline. The AWS code pipeline will automate the continuous integration and delivery of the application. The next thing in the line is verify the staging environment, so if it is working or not. Then after that one, let's go live at the staging. Okay, I'll explain to you why we need to go first to the staging environment. But first, after we created the task from 1 to 3, we will create a AWS template. So what is this AWS template? Actually, AWS template is a clone task from 1 to 3. Okay, here from 1 to 3, from Amazon Web Service account setup to the live staging environment setup. Later on, I'll explain to you what's the purpose of that one. Next is we will have a quality assurance library. So we'll have a QA first. First is we will draft a test plan and a test case. The person involved here are stakeholders in the QA team. So after they draft the test plan and test case, we're going to execute the test plan and test case. That will require both 24 hours to do. So if the list of test plan and test case is satisfied, we will have a sign of quality assurance that will require only 4 hours. So after the QA, we'll have a user acceptance testing. First is to draft the test cases. Afterwards, we will need to execute those test cases. And if those test cases, those lists of test cases have passed, we'll have a sign off with the user acceptance testing. If you have these two documents, the sign off for the quality assurance and the user acceptance testing, then we can go to the live at the production. That will only require 8 hours to set up. If you notice, it has a subtask, launch the AWS template. Remember, when you do the task from 1 to 3, it is a clean and fresh installation of the server. So if you will go live to the production, you don't have to undo all those tasks. You just load it from the template. So after you load it from the template, we need to verify the production. Basically, this will serve as what do you call this one? The final and ready to use application. So once the application is deployed, we will have a live support. Of course, that will have a 720 hours. That is almost 3 to 4 months for live support. So in total, the implementation schedule will require 1,116 hours, maybe equivalent to 5 months, 4 to 5 months, I think. Next is we will have this implementation requirement. For the application to run into production, there are hardware and software involved. These serve as the prerequisite of the implementation requirement. Any missing part is failure to run the application in the production. This is also known as the system dependencies. It is a constraint-based relationship between activities of the project, wherein such activity is reliant to the initiation and the completion of the other. The existence of such activity is dictated by another activity, or they are coherent with each other. This could be a resource, an entity, a financial aspect, and the like. Intoentries is dependent on the following resource. Training. Training on how to use the system. These are short educational videos. Video tutorials save you from costing because of repetitive training of different professionals. Aside from these are methods that can be used, such as classroom for training or a web-based training. Next is AWS account and configuration. The entire application is deployed in the cloud. There are companies that provide cloud computing services that include solutions to the business. They provide a rented and managed virtual hardware, software, infrastructure, or basically your own virtual server package. Intoentries suggests to subscribe to Amazon Web Services provider for their growing success in providing a stable platform where world-known companies' first choice. Another one to consider is the ISP, or the Internet Service Provider. We know for the fact that stability of internet connections draws worries and concern among businesses here in the Philippines. Most companies suggest to have at least 2 ISP to lower the downtime. When one is down, at least the other will provide a service till the main ISP is resolved. Next is software license. Intoentries include a single proprietary tool complete to serve its purpose. It is important and essential to pay for this one-time payment to prevent legal problems. Apple Store payment. This is an annual payment to be made in Apple to continually publish the application in the Apple Store for download availability for the users. Play Store. A one-time payment to be made in Google. Same with the Apple Store download availability of the application. So goes the presentation, and Thank you for listening.